Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain, a channel dedicated to tabletop role-playing games, particularly play-by-post using gamersplain.com. In the segment Player versus Player, I interview users from Gamersplain in order to find out how people use the service and engage in play-by-post gaming. Hopefully, we will learn from each other and improve our own games, and maybe have a little fun along the way. In today's episode, I have Player versus Player, where I will interview a user named Runekyndig, and we will discuss whatever we want. Following the interview, there will be a meme of the week, QQ&AA, my own version of viewer mail, and then Qralloqian lore, a short tip and trick to using gamersplain.com. I'm Qralloq, and this is episode 4 of Gamers Explain.
Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain. I'm Qralloq, and I have with me Runekyndig.
Yeah,
which I've probably just butchered, but
not so bad. Runekyndig is the Danish pronunciation.
Yeah. So you're in Denmark.
Yes, I am. And
now, are you on the main island or on Jutland, or?
I'm in the main island. There's loads of islands, but yes, I'm on the main island where we have our capital. In Copenhagen. I work in Copenhagen, and I just commute a bit outside Copenhagen, where me and my family will live. And yeah, actually the kind of the origin story to why I got into play by post, because we had a daughter. And all of a sudden, I didn't have time for my favorite pastime, that was tabletop role-playing games. So I had to find an outlet for the itch. And then I started looking around. I had played some play-by-post on Facebook. We were a group that made a Facebook group where we played a Firefly adventure.
Oh, okay.
And it was just make a post, set a scene, and then we commented on that scene, and then that was our game. And then make a new scene, new post, and then it worked. We had fun.
Well, Facebook's kind of weird, though, because posts don't always show up on other feeds unless you go looking for it, and then things aren't always in order. But we probably just got used to it.
Yeah, well, we had it was the time when groups were really a group. So we navigated into the group, and we got a notification when somebody had written in the group. And then we could go in and respond or take actions or whatever. But it was, I don't think the current version of Facebook really supports that kind of game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very typical Scandinavian or Danish way of play by post. It was a corroborative storytelling, and we all agreed on this is the boundaries and what should we do, and had some basic ground rules, and then we just went with it.
Right.
And we had a chat on the side where we could have a out of character chat and say, I want to go in this direction. What do you think? I want to go in that direction. And I see a lot of Danish play by post in that aspect. And not that many that are going with systems like we are. We're going with, when I say with system, we're going with D&D and World of Darkness and GURPS and whatever. But this,
one of my first experiences with online play was in back in the day before Google just took over everything. You had a variety of search engines, and one of them, excite.com, was fairly popular, and they had an online presence called Virtual Places. So it's sort of like a avatar-based chat room group. It was kind of graphical, but it was mostly just text. And people would role play there all the time. But usually it was, so I joined like this vampire game. And you'd be in the room and it's like a dark whisperer enters the room. He moves to a corner and hides and broods. And then somebody else would come in and they'd move to a corner and they'd brood, right? And it was just like this octagonal room with all corners so people could brood in it. It was really lame.
Well, but it's a place to start.
Yeah.
And yes, it was lame. And then by George, the first games we played, or I played, it was corny as hell. But that's where you begin, and then you start finding somebody you click with, and getting some more depth, and you push yourself, or you find you can expand your boundaries because this is a safe space to experiment and to be more, to play more, play deeper.
Yeah. So you've experienced when you were playing prior to going to play by post, were you doing a lot of the more collaborative storytelling around the table as well, or was it more system based?
Both. We have a role-playing convention that's called Festival each year, where it is a cooperative storytelling, or somebody have written a scenario that we play through. That seldom there's any real rules. That's just they set a scene, and then we interact with the scene. We have a character, and then we go through the adventure together. And these games are very, very system light. And in the end of the convention, they are rewarded just like the Oscars.
Okay.
They're getting awards for the best characters, or the best story, the best audience experience, and I don't want to say props, but how the tools used to tell the story. And then we have a lot of fun with that. So that's very typical in Scandinavian conventions, that we have adventures that are very, very rule light.
Right.
And often we take touchy subjects. That's we go to the edge, and sometimes a bit beyond. And can we tell for example, we have a story about a girl goes on a journey, and she has this conch shell that she's walking around with, and it's very precious, and somebody wants it, and so on and so forth. And we go through this story, and we meet individual and characters that are really, really nasty. And when we take a step back, we realize this young girl is getting raped.
Right.
And this conch shell, that's her vagina. That's somebody wants to get at and destroy. And she's coping with it by making this fantasy world.
Wow, that is pretty dark.
It is.
Yeah.
But we tell it in this light and fantasy world, because that's where she escaped to.
Right.
So that's kind of sometimes this is the kind of games that I introduced.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and it's that level of metaphor can often be quite therapeutic, I imagine. And these are important subjects, and we just largely ignore them because if you don't handle them properly, it can be very uncomfortable. Right.
And it's also because we in these conventions we set up, and we know what game you're going into. You have signed up for it, and afterwards we have an introduction. We have some warm up for now we're going to play, and afterwards we're going to have a debrief and just what did we play, and how did you experience, and what was good, what was bad, and relatively in the evening we're sitting drinking beers and talking about our what games we have played, because not all of them are this dark, of course.
Yeah.
There are also, funny games and weird games, but there's this. The story doesn't. It's the story that's important, not the mechanics. That's very typical Scandinavian. But I find that when we have to play such games, that there's a lot of communication back and forth. There's a lot of communication where we have to, where are our boundaries? What can we do? What can't we do? And then when we go to play it by post, I feel more comfortable knowing I have this rule system here. Here's the boundaries. What can I do? What can't I do? So we're going in with the common understanding and how is our playground defined? It says so in the book. Good.
Yeah.
And we can play within that.
Well, there's a kind of a dichotomy from pure storytelling to running a game as a tactical board game. Like Mech Warrior is a game based upon BattleTech, which is giant robots. You're a pilot, and so BattleTech itself is just a combat game, or a military game, with grids, and it's just movement. There's no role play at all. No. Mech Warrior is a role playing game that gets added onto it, but really it's just, you can just play it as a tactical board game, right? And so it's a complex, crunchy rule set. But some people, and even people play D&D that way, which is, this is just a simulator for a kind of board game. And it's, I think really great games can be in both places, but I certainly prefer them in the middle. Though I don't know that I've ever really played a purely collaborative storytelling based game.
Well, if you're playing something like Fate or some of the Cypher games, that is going very much into the collaborate, where the player has a lot of say in the story.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, the Apocalypse World setting, Dungeon World and powered by the Apocalypse. Yeah. I've been really exploring that recently, and I think it really adds to that. And it took me a long time to really kind of grok how that system works in a GM's brain. But now that I've gotten it, I think it really pushes that kind of improv style results. You roll the dice and comes out and it's like, well, you succeed, but there's a consequence, or you succeed, or fail, but there's a really serious, divergence. And so it's not really like pass fail. It's more like, here's how to move the story forward, but introduce a new complication.
And that can be really, really fun and really, really engaging. But if you're not totally clear on what is your environment, how is our sandbox defined, then that game gets, then that can be really, really rough and really, really hard or uninteresting.
Yeah.
And you lose your players if they don't know what are our ground rules and how can we expand. So I find playing in known universes, something like Fantasy Flight's Genesis system. Yeah, we also have this pass-fail, but with a twist. Yeah, you can succeed with failures or with threats, or you can pass, or you can fail your test, but with successes, and then you can model what does that mean. I shoot the bad guy, but I miss, but I get successes. Okay, I shoot him, but behind him I hit something that causes a cloud, and he had a hard time seeing now. That stuff like that. The first time I played in that system, it was Star Wars. Known universe. I know what we can do. What can't we do? What is the expectation of a blaster pistol. Okay, that could do that. We know what happened. So that was a very established universe, and that made it easy because we all had the same frame of reference.
Yeah.
In a totally new world, especially in sci-fi world, then it can be really tough. Because what can we do? What can't we do? Where is the technological boundaries? Or a very magical world? What can't we do? What can we do? And I think that's some of the reason why some of the established settings are so popular. We can say Forgotten Realms, and we all have a really fine understanding what can we do and what can't we do. Especially if you also go in Dungeons and Dragons, then the rule sets are bountiful, and we have a lot of reference. We all know what. But if we're going into the Husky system in a special place far, far away, we don't know what's this. Okay, we've got a spaceship, but how does it work? Then it could be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a. What was I going to say? There was a game I was in last year, and it was Lasers and Feelings, or something like that. So Lasers and Feelings is like you've got a range of 1 to 6. This is your entire character. You've got a range of 1 to 6. You might be closer to lasers, you might be closer to feelings. And so whenever a check comes up, you figure out, is this a lasers test or a feelings test, right? And that's everything revolves around that. Then maybe you can roll 2 dice instead in some cases. We role played that in this sci-fi setting for like just crazy. That game is still going, and it's probably over 9,000 posts now. And it just started just over a year ago. So the system almost never comes up, but the GM had to lay out very strict rules about interpreting, because we're just making everything up. It was just a made up sci-fi universe, maybe a little like Firefly. And so like, what could we do? What could our technology do? All of that she had to just adjudicate as we went, and and just so an out of channel kind, or an out of character kind of discussion became very important for that.
Yeah.
But you can't get tighter rules than Lasers and Feelings without having no rules at all.
Yeah. Well, just this Thursday, my in real life group, or what you would call it, my friends and I, we actually met and started a Numenera game, and that is a fairly new universe for me. As I know, it's almost everything goes in that strange universe of Numenera. And we started real cool because we just started make up a name and then we go from there. All the character creation and all that stuff we'll take next time. Right now we're just starting an adventure and make a name and then react. And we had a wonderful time and no rules at all. I think we rolled the dice 5 times that evening. But the rest we just storytold. Just told each other the story. This character, okay, what does he do, and what's his name, and then it kind of bloomed up from there. That was kind of a fun way to start, and then the next time we put rules on it.
That's a great idea. That it's kind of like a session 0. You get out together, you hash out what you really want to do with your characters.
Yeah.
And then the GM knows what to expect.
It was also a way to explore the character, because I was just I had a name, and then my GM just introduced some technological wonder that could teleport stuff. We had tossed stone. We were just kids. We had tossed stones in it, and it appeared somewhere else. And when he introduced that, I was just, my character, is that the kind of idiot who jumps into this teleporting portal? Yes, he is. Okay. Then I experienced I experienced the character being created in front of me because I was going in blind and just okay, seeing how he developed in front of me. That was kind of cool. It's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, yeah. I know that with the Savage Worlds game we're playing it together, we kind of skipped over a bunch of that, and that was on purpose. I wanted to kind of jump in and really just kind of, as I said before, establish the stakes early and then get into some background stuff. But we kind of kept going, and I at some point I just need to stop us and really work on, Ross's background and so because I think we're having a problem, and we've talked about a little bit with
that for those who don't know, it's a Savage World game. We just started off, and we moved fast and got into a really in media res, jumped into a huge battle. And for me, in a way, it's just I had a rough idea of the character, but it's in the Blue Rose setting. It's a new setting, so I'm not super familiar with it. So where is his place in that world? That's where that was where I was struggling, because where did he belong and what was important to him, and that was kind of why it's just I kind of lost connection to the character, because I didn't figure out what's important to this guy anymore, because we're just running around after bad guys.
Yeah, and that's a problem I've had with Numenera, and it took me a while. I just love the setting, but it's such a wide, anything goes kind of world. Like, it's the whole world. It's the Earth, right? And anything can be going on under the sea or in space or just anywhere, and things are just going to operate weirdly. I find every time I've played in Numenera or even run a game, the characters are all just like hobos with no background. Like, nobody can really just a second. Cat's about to topple something. Made the mistake of using a cat tree for a flag post.
Rookie mistake.
So everybody just, the place is so large, and so there's no set place you can really anchor to. Like in Star Wars, if there was just 3.3 million planets and none of them were defined, you'd have a really hard time making a character without a lot of guidance, right? And just say, well, is this a desert planet? Are we playing in a space station? But they can just say, we're going to start off in Tatooine and Mos Eisley, or we're going to start off in Coruscant or Rill, and just go hard. The players can then wrap their heads around and ground themselves in what life is like in that, and build a character connected to that world.
Yeah, because it's either that, go to something you already know, or start small.
Yeah.
So you're from this village.
Yeah.
It's in this planet, and it's this kind of planet. And then the first few sessions, it's just, figuring out the village, or, somewhere where it just contained, it says, this little bubble you have to explore and get comfortable in, and make this your anchor or this base. And then you can expand the bubble afterwards. Just say, okay, we see we find a spaceship, and then we go outside, go into space, and then go explore that. But then you still have your anchor.
Yeah.
I had a game with Natkinson, the Salt March, what's it called? Nightmare of the Salt March Dungeons and Dragons game. Where our group, we were so well established, the group. It was, how did we character meet? it was one of the characters' birthday, and then all of a sudden we had this really solid group, and we were first levels. And when we had a character death, it was actually very difficult to keep going, because the group that was so solid lost one of the characters, and one of the brother of my character died, and it's just, why should I keep going on?
Yeah.
That was just that was the other way. It's just, that was too much, too solid, too solid a foundation to keep playing on, and the game just fizzled, unfortunately. And I had a long talk with Atkinson afterwards. It was an awesome start. You meet in an inn because it's one of the guys' birthday, and fine, it was cool. We started, and all of a sudden, it made it actually hard to keep going on when we had a character death. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been meaning to ask people is there one thing you think that anybody who joins a play-by-post game like on GamersPlane needs to know?
Need to know.
Yeah, so for example, like if you part of the
the third guest.
part of the he's really old. He's like 11.
Wow.
Anyway, still agile though. So with the when you join a game like on GamersPlane, some people get in and they'll just kind of like take over, right? Just controlling other people's characters, having them do things, it's like, oh, you feel like this about me, instead of allowing you to develop those reactions, and just missing that collaborative piece. So I think that's one thing that really needs to be established for new users is it's collaborative.
Yeah. And have patience. Tabletop, around the table games, there you have an instant response. When you go into play by post, you will have a response within a few days. Hopefully the same day, but expect that it will take 24 hours before you get a response to your action. And it is especially the impatient ones that I feel that this kind of that they rush forward, and then they write a post, and then if they are lucky enough, there's another impatient guy, and there are two that's typing to each other, and all of a sudden there are 20 posts a day. I was in a game actually that had a few impatient characters, gamers. So when I went in, I said, "Okay, guys, we had a talk with the merchant here, and now you're already fighting the dragon. I can't keep up with this." So this, that we have a game pace, that's something that should not be ignored.
Yeah.
It's actually it's something a new player should know, that you should have patience. And also, when you just join the GamersPlane or any forum like this, don't expect to jump into the game right away. Of course, you sign up and says, "Okay, I'm gonna game today." It'll probably take a few days before there is an opening that you can actually join.
Yeah. That's a good one, because I think from site statistics, which are sometimes released, a lot of people join, they get their confirmation email, maybe they make an introduction post, and then they just kind of disappear. And it could be that impatience, right? You want to play, but you can't, right? You log on and you've done the work, you've introduced yourself, and then it's just crickets for 3 days, a week, maybe. And so then you never develop the habit of coming to the site to check. And
No.
then, a year later, it's like, oh yeah, I made an account. Maybe I should go see if I can find something there.
Yeah, because I pulled the statistics, or rather, I got Adam to pull the statistics for the gamers playing, and I visualized it for a few weeks ago, and I'm actually having it on my second screen right now. And it's we have a lot of players who never made a post,
Really?
or just signed in, or never were in a game, just signed in, were there, but never really went to something. And I think it's hard to get started, and also you have to sign in to actually see what is this all about.
One of my projects is to make an introduction to gamers playing video. And maybe this is something that we could just have Kelleth put on the front page if it's suitable, and just say, so you're interested in gamers playing. Here's a 5-minute video that explains what you're gonna see and how to get around. So they make an account, log in, they're already, they've watched this brief video that says what to expect, and maybe that will increase engagement.
Yeah, I remember when I started getting into play by post. I also saw similar video somewhere where play by post there was turtle pace and not instant. So it was one of those points as well. And I think we actually have it as. It's difficult to find a game because we're rather inconsistent in how we advertise for our games. I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
We can advertise a game on Discord. I said, I'm somebody interested there. Then you'll get the Discord players. Just a second. Jeg ved ikke, hvor ligger din sofa. Jeg ved det faktisk ikke. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Train of thought. There we go. Yeah. We have our we advertise on our Discord. We have the forum, and then we have the find game functions on the site. And my impression is that find a game system that's on the site. That's people don't use that, or new players don't know what else to do, so they click the button, find a game, and when they just sign up for a game and say, click, I want to play this game, and they don't get into the game because the GM have already advertised this game into the forum or somewhere else. So these guys, these new players, they're using this find a game system. They don't find a game because the players have already been found.
Yeah, or and this happens because I run a lot of games, and so I get a lot of random requests to join games. So I set up a duet, so one player, one GM. Yeah. But due to a site quirk, you have to have 2 players. That's the minimum number of players you could have to create a game. Huh. So you can close a game so people can't apply to it because I'd invited the person.
Yeah.
But then somebody else sent me a request like, hey, could I join your game? It's like, well, it's a duet. Like I've already got the one player. I created it for that person, and
Yeah.
but they expressed enough interest that I just created a new duet for them, and we did something different. And so so Squad Father 44 and I have been running this duet set in ancient Greece, which is a particular love of mine. It doesn't get nearly enough exploration in RPGs, at least in my circles. So, but I've played with Squad Father before, and so I knew who he was. But I do get requests for people, and it's like, brand new user, create an account today, no note or anything, just an application. Like,
Yeah.
Bob the Envoy is requested to join your game. And you're like, well, that's really easy to say no to, but they don't know that. But they don't know that, right?
No.
I don't know them. They don't know what the protocols and the etiquette is. So I always try and at least message them and say, this is why I'm reacting the way I am. Sometimes I let them in. Sometimes.
I did something similar when I started up I have a Spelljammer game going, because that was also a setting up that I feel lacked some love.
Yeah. Sure.
And I remember I also got a lot of just these blind requests without even a message to me. Just click, I want to sign up. I ended up having a copy paste messages. This is how we do. I asked on the forum, asked for players who are interested. There is this premise about the game. We have to agree on that. So. And that's the way we currently do it. But the setup of the site doesn't really support it or support another way of joining a game. So that would be something that would be on the top of the list. Should we make an introduction video to how to join a game on exPlane?
Yeah, and if designing, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I don't want to make any work for the game designers, but you might kind of think that join a game premise, you go there and you just join a game, right? That's what it's called. It's not like find a game or here's a list of games you might not be able to join.
Yeah,
join a game, right? So you go through it and it's like, well, I did everything that was asked of me. How come I'm not in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be frustrating for everyone.
Yeah, it could be, for sure.
I signed up. I did all the stuff that I was supposed to do. I'm still unsure how things are working. I did what the guide said I should, and it didn't work. And then I'll do it. Okay, fine. I'll go somewhere else. And I think that's the reason why we have so many users that have never really engaged.
Yeah.
I actually think that one of the practices that I've seen in the later day, in the last 6 months or so, that's when somebody starts a game, say, "Do someone want to join my game? I want at least 1 or 2 brand new players."
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I said, "Okay, I'm doing that as well." As a GM, when I call for players and say, "Yeah, I'm just starting up, but I also want a new player because, boy, Qralloq, he's in plenty games. He doesn't need to get into mine. But this guy who's brand new, yeah, I want to take you in and show you how the game is."
Yeah, and that's a great idea because, and if you're a new player watching this and you've just joined exPlane and found this somehow, one of the issues with new players is because of this attrition rate. You set up a game, you've got 4 to 6 players, they're playing, and then somebody just disappears, right? Well, what happened to this guy? He hasn't posted in 2 weeks, or this woman, and she hasn't posted in a month, and now she's got these little Z's by her name.
Yeah.
And so it can really drag a game down to a crawl. So some GMs are quite reluctant to rely on new players. But I think your idea of having, some core solid posters, people you're familiar with at least, and then having a few people, because if 1 or 2 people disappear,
we can say goodbye. Yeah.
You're not, the whole game isn't resting on their shoulders necessarily. So yeah, it's a good idea. Now, the one of the other things you talked about, and and when we were discussing what we might talk about today, was enhancements for gamers playing and other role posts. Like the one I use a lot is on-the-fly battle map.
Yeah.
Well, I don't use it a lot. I try and steer away from combat in games as much as I can because it can really lag things down.
It can, but
it makes it that on-the-fly battle map, and we'll do a video at some point of just kind of demonstrating how it works. But it allows you token-based grid combat like you would typically see with miniatures on a board. It's really easy to set up. A few parameters, a link to a website, and you post it as an image tag in the game. So it takes very little to set up. And bam, you've got a game map. And theoretically, the players can just use the same coding, move their player, post a new image call, and it advances everything. It's really brilliant and really easy.
Yeah, and I'm also using it to just indicate where are my players currently. Because, and again, I'm running my Spelljammer game, and they're exploring a ship. So I have a map or a grid. It's just showing the image of the ship, and then I just set the tokens. Says, okay, I got these guys in the mess hall. I got those players. They're up at the artificer's workshop. I got this one in the crew cabin, and it's just a quick image of where are people right now.
Yeah.
And who can make a scene together, who can interact together, and who should say, I'm going to move to another scene to interact in the scene.
Yeah.
And I find that really helpful, just to give a snapshot. Says this is the ship. Someone on the deck, someone is below. Where are they? And then just move on, because it's just an idea of where are people.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could use it for a space map too. Like if you were playing Star Trek, and you could have a whole map of Alpha Quadrant out.
Yeah.
Just because you can put an image on the background of this grid map.
Yeah.
Put a token on grid mark, D4, and it's like, okay, you guys are in sector 001, or maybe you're on the Romulan neutral zone or wherever. And so it's just there. Yeah, visually pleasing.
It is an easy way to, because one of the things with play by post is we have to be really clear in our communication. When we play on the tabletop, then we can quickly have a back and forth of questions. Are we there? Are we there? Okay, we're there. But when you're playing play by post, then it's, are we there? Or we're there? Wait 20 hours. We're there. Okay, that slows it down. So can we have some tools to help it ease us in our communication? And I find imagery really helps to illustrate, or to move the tell the story, or help enhance my storytelling. That's just giving an image, or just where are we, or if I'm going for a specific feeling, or what feeling would I like to introduce into my players, then I could find something, a small video, a GIF, or something that says, this is the feeling.
With Adam's extension.
Adam's extension makes it wonderful.
If you put a YouTube link, it actually shows a preview at the bottom, and so you can actually click it in line. Whereas the base site, at least as of yesterday, it might be integrated slowly. Just has the link, and so you have to click to it. You have to leave the site, watch the video, and come back. Yeah.
That's actually why I'm starting to using GIFs more often. If I can find a GIF, because that's a small video that can be embedded directly into the imagery, directly into the post. I had my characters, they were meeting a swarm of bugs, and just, I want to make clear that this is creepy and uncomfortable. I find the small gift showing the swarm of bugs from The Mummy, the movie The Mummy, and it was just, I put this, it's just, this is the mood I want to set.
Yeah.
And I got one of my characters says, this creeps me out totally, more than you could describe. That gift, that creeps me out. It's wonderful, because that kind of stuff, that kind of enhances my experience.
Yeah, no, and as a player, I love it when GMs put that in. No, Qralloq will often put battle music at the beginning of his post for every round of combat. It's like, here's just a link to YouTube, some battle music.
Yeah.
You know, you click that, gives you some. Yeah, it's something I use around the table, right? I've always got music playing, and I have a playlist, and I'll manage the playlist, and so if they get into a dark, creepy situation, I switch to dark, creepy playlist, right? And you can see the mood change around the table. It's and adding that to a forum is definitely noteworthy.
Yeah. I also find that I'm starting using a Hero Forge. It's a website where you can design your tabletop hero, but you can also paint the characters in that. So you actually can make a figure, and you can actually make your character look like, you make your character and then you make the figure, and then you could just take the image of that figure, because then you can put in a different pose or something different, and and it makes it easy to have a avatar of your character that you can tweak along the way, and say, okay, have this this character, and he has a dark bowler or something, but just yesterday there was some assets were tossed out in it. Okay, and then he no longer has his bowler. Fine, I'm go in, find my figure, and just delete the bowler, and then we have his bear head. And it kind of, it's just a small thing, but kind of having this, that's just, it makes it more fun and interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Another and more important tool that I use, it's actually a browser extension called Grammarly. That I am slightly dyslexic. Even that is a hard word. Yeah, and English is my second language, so I make mistakes from time to time. And just having this Grammarly, sets, it's a spell checker and also a grammar checker, and it just makes it easier for me to write a good post. I just had a bit of support and says, I'll write my post and say, okay, this is has should be have, or the other way around, and just make a better quality post and easier for the other player to read.
Yeah. Now, I do almost all my gaming on this device right here, a Samsung S10. Right now, this is tiny, so I had. So if I'm making a post, and here's an example. So if I want to make a post, you can't see that, can you?
No, just widescreen.
So, you know, on the screen, you've got like the post, and then you've got like this little box at the bottom for the post. And the Grammarly adds a little button into the bottom corner of the text box. At least my version did. And so then on the mobile, and so I was constantly getting to the end of a line, and then I couldn't type anymore because I'd hit that, and then it would take me to like this, well, here's what, you know, the word "the" actually means. And so I was constantly having to fight Grammarly. On a computer, I would definitely use it. if I was posting like an adult.
I actually primarily use my computer for posting. I seldom use my phone, because it's just, I've gotten dependent on having the tools and the overview, and I'm also zooming in on the screen to see what I'm writing. It's a bother. So the longer post, I can't write longer post on my phone. That's getting too old.
Yeah, so Atom's extension. So for people who haven't used it, it's an extension for Chrome.
Chrome and Firefox and other browsers that are based on Chrome, like Brave, the Brave browser. I'm using that one.
Yeah, so on my phone, I'm using Kiwi browser because the Chrome and the Firefox apps don't accept extensions. Plus, Google is just a giant data mine, and who knows what they're really doing, right? Those Google guys. So Kiwi browser is designed to be they don't keep any of your data, they don't mine it, they don't serve you ads based upon your experience, but they also allow extensions on mobile. So Atom's extension, which works mostly on Android browsers, works just fine on Kiwi. And so on my phone, get all those extra tools. And one of those is putting backgrounds on your web pages. And so I've really started doing that. And it's just, that's one feature that doesn't work on the mobile, actually.
No.
And so now I'm using my laptop more and more because I just want to see these beautiful backgrounds I put on like our Savage Worlds game or
yeah. And it's fun. It's just a small thing to have these background images, but it does so much. It sets the mood of this game and what is this game, and helps differentiate if you are in several games. Just okay, then I'm in. I have a ship, a spaceship in this background. Okay, this is a spaceship game. Or then I drop to another page and it's got a beautiful forest, and then it's a Blue Rose game. It helps set the mood and where should your mindset be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to take too long. These videos get really long, and I'm not sure if that does anybody any good. But
I think we also got around to some of the good stuff.
Yeah. Now, one question I do have, and you've kind of answered it offline, I think, but being a Danish speaker, I assume Danish is the so you speak Danish, and most role-playing games, I think, are published in English.
Yeah,
and I know that there's a wealth of stuff comes out of Germany and from Scandinavia. Just some great games, and as they're translated to English, you just jump into them because they're so good. But do you find in your real life experience that not being native English is a challenge? Does it create an obstacle?
No. Denmark is a small country. That's a really small country. So, and we know it, and we don't try to fight it so we are taught English at school from, or I just think 4th grade. We're starting to teach our kids English, and then we just speak it and just take it as a second language.
Right. So it's second language of Denmark then.
Yeah. We don't translate our movies or TV shows. It's subtitles, and then we go with the originals. So we hear a lot of English. We see it. We read it. So having a core book in English is not an issue.
Right.
Actually, when I play one of the Swedish games where it's in Swedish.
Yep.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
Because there are small differences in the Danish and the Swedish language, and these small differences, they are important. So that's difficult. I'd rather read it in English than I would read it in Swedish. So no, it's not a problem at all. But again, that's because we That's just the way the Danish are. We would just learn English because we know that the Danish language is too small to be anything international. And I also see some games from Danish game designers are directly translated into English because they know that's where the market is.
Yep.
So they almost doesn't bother with a Danish version. Only in the beta version of the game or the first draft, they'll just make it in Danish and try that out. But when it gets released, directly to English.
Yeah. You talked earlier about how, maybe this was offline, but how you at one point had a brief interest in, you said Native Indian, and I took that to mean Native American Indian versus Native continental India.
Yeah.
So I backed a Kickstarter recently called Coyote and Crow. Now, so this is a unique, I've long wanted to run a Native, Indigenous First Nations, First North Americans game. But it's so hard. There's 500 and some cultures, right? They're all unique. You can't just this is how this group works, or how natives as a group work. So Coyote and Crow is all native for North Americans as artists, as the authors, as the game designers. They have a few people outside of their cultures that assist them with some things, and their response has just been fantastic. They're just a great Kickstarter, a couple $1 million in backing, and really looking forward to that. But one of their key things is that they want to make it really easy that you can take your culture, locally where I am. There's the Blood Nation, there's the Stony and the Nakota, and the Tsuut'ina. There's just these various different cultures that speak completely different languages, and have different practices, but they're all very close to each other geographically, right? And so you can kind of lump them all together, but they're all very different. So in Coyote and Crow, they're really trying to give people the tool set to make their own culture as a part of the world. Here's what you need to do to fit, structure the descriptions for your culture so it matches the rest of the descriptions.
Yeah.
But but that's one of those problems of having some of these cultures. There's two people left just talking the language, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna get a game designed in that.
No. When I get the time and the headspace, and I wanted to dive into a Trudvang, is a Scandinavian or Swedish setting. It is really a dark Norwegian forest. It is a tall forest and deep dark forest with trolls and worms and slithering dragons and all this stuff. I want to dive into that because that's really Nordic games. Yeah. But the setting is very Viking like, or the theme is very Viking like, but the setting I just have to have time to read it through and get into it before I'm going to tackle that.
Yeah,
they made a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition conversion, and I kickstarted that. So I have that plus a few of their adventures. At some point, I'm going to do that when I have the headspace to it.
Yeah, I know. One of my favorite of those Scandinavian games is Symbaroum, and it's pretty fantastic. It's just really this dark, creepy forest where just bad things happen, and the farther you go in, you're just going to die, right? You're going to get corrupted and die. And so humans are kind of encroaching, but they find there's, it's just a really dark and foreboding setting, but it's brilliant in its layout, and it's in its flavor. But the game itself, I find, is really just not that great. The game rules that they came up with.
Yeah.
So they've converted it to 5th edition recently, and that should make it a lot more enjoyable. But I worry about 5th edition too, because it's got such a steep power curve, right? Like you make a 17th level fighter, and he's just going to wade. That character is going to wade through most obstacles, and that isn't at all Symbaroum.
Now that's actually a thing that I looked forward to in the when I kickstarted the 5th edition of Trudvang, because they had a very different approach to magic. In the original rules, the rules were the magic rules were you can either do it the easy way, where you just the easy dark way, easy to get powerful, but the consequences were big. If you fumbled, then you got really then it got really bad if you fumble that when you're using dark magic, so to speak. And if you took the light path, it was more difficult. You couldn't do as much, but there was no consequence of fumbling. So there was this: do you want to get powerful fast, then there's a cost, or do you want to get powerful but slow? Then it's safe. That kind of difference, that kind of magic system, is not supported by 5th edition, and I kind of think that's a danger, converting too many systems into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Then you lose some of the setting, or no, not setting. There's some of the themes that the system, the original system, was supporting. You lose that.
Yeah.
So when you pick up a system, it's also what kind of adventure can this system provide? Do you want a nitty-gritty and really detailed system? What can you do and can't you do? Go with GURPS or something. Do you want it very light? Go with this. What should this game system? What can it do for you to support the story you want to tell? And converting everything to 5th edition, then you only tell one kind of story.
Yep.
That's being being a hero that goes out and hits stuff with your weapon, and that's the way you solve problems. Kill stuff,
Yep.
take the loot.
All good things.
Yeah. Of course, there are good, fun adventures in that, but there are some stories that you really can't tell, because the guy who took the easy path to power versus the one who took the slow and safe, you can't tell that story because it's not supported by the system. Then you have to tweak the system in some weird way, or house rule it if you want to tell that story.
Yeah. And, maybe a 5th edition aficionado might say, well, that's really the difference between a wizard and a warlock. But when you create a level 1 character, you're not role-playing the 5 or 10 years that the wizard was in school. It's like, all of that's been done. The warlock is like, hey, Bob, can I have some power? Done, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's go kill stuff. But they're on, fairly equal footing with that wizard when you start the game. And all of that light path, dark path stuff is just, it's flavor you could add to the game, but you could also just completely ignore it. And I think most people do.
And sometimes I think that if the system supports the flavor, you get a better game experience, and you feel that your choices have a consequence. I think that's almost an entire new conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I know it's getting later there. There's an 8-hour time difference, and one of the cool things about Play by Post is in our Savage Worlds Blue Rose mashup, there's you and Bowl of Spinach are both in the Central Europe time zone. The other two players are both.
I think he's German.
Yeah, and the other two players are on on the eastern seaboard of the North America, and I'm in the west, and so you and I are 8 hours apart. But the game, I don't think that doesn't matter, right?
No.
It would be hard for us to play on Roll20 or something.
Yeah, that's another thing. Roll20, there you have to say we'll meet at this time. But what play by post is just, well, right now I can't do it because the child is screaming her head off, and then I'll go sort that, and then I can go in and play.
Yeah, sometimes I'll see a post, I'm like, isn't it the middle of the night over there? Like, what are you doing posting?
Well, it is the middle of the night. Just winding down from the day and just checking the post and saying, oh, I can answer that one and react that one. And
yeah.
Wait for her to wake up and cause a fuss, and I can put it back down. And once I've done that, then I go to bed.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for finding a way to make this work, and I think this is a great conversation.
Yeah, and thank you for making these videos. I think it was an awesome idea to get us up there, to put a name to our faces. The other way around, face to our names.
Yeah, and I'm the worst person to do this. Like, I have no experience whatsoever in hosting things on YouTube. I've uploaded one video prior to the one I did a week ago, and but the community support is awesome as always, as it is with Gamers Playing, and so it's definitely been a great series of conversations. I'm looking forward to the much more we have. And
I actually have a bit of experience with it. My first job out of university, that was one of my jobs tasks within that was actually editing videos from PhD students who were going to some conference, and they were just to get some funding from our group. Then you had to make a short video telling about whatever science they're doing, and if they couldn't figure out to do it themselves, sent me some material, and I cobbled it together.
Yeah. So
I've done a little video editing and put it on Facebook. YouTube. So I have a little editing experience. So
yeah, well, YouTube certainly makes it easy. Like, their tool set is pretty powerful. Even closed captioning. One of the users sent me things like, can you enable closed captioning because I'm hard of hearing? It's like, wow, that's entirely worthy. And so I just checked into it, and YouTube just figures it out, right? Within a couple hours of putting up a video, they've added their attempt at what the dialogue is supposed to be, and you can go in and edit it. And so, like my name, Qralloq, sometimes it's Qralloq, and sometimes it's Qralloq or something, and D&D is always just random, sometimes just DD or DND, or Gamers Playing is generally random. Yeah. So, but it's powerful and it's accurate. So the actual editing is really just reading it and finding the occasional flaw. So that kind of stuff is definitely, I probably would have had a much harder time 5 years ago.
Yeah, but voice recognition has gone very far in the last few years.
Yeah,
and that's all these digital assistants like Siri, Apple Siri, and the Google Assistant. It's all voice recognition and turn that voice into text, then can be recognized by the algorithm. So it's probably the same algorithm running through it. Just listen to all of that we has said and just identifying the words and then writing them down. So probably the same thing that when you say, hello, Google, do this, it's the same ear, digital ear that hear both.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Runekyndig, for joining me.
Yeah.
on Gamers Explain. I'm Qralloq, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Have a good night. I'm just starting my day.
Have a good day then.
Thank you.
Hi, and this is QQ&AA, Qralloq's questions and asks answers, or something like that. This is a viewer mail segment, and so I have a question or a comment from Gamersplain user Adam, and it's a pretty good one. He says, as you've played in more games than anyone else, do you find there are some players that you find yourself completely incompatible with? You might like them as people, but are unable to play with them. And then he says, to be honest, surely the answer to this is yes. Well, Adam, of course the answer is yes. It might not be a surprise to most people watching this that the internet is a place of conflict. At least largely it seems that way. And so we run across people and rub them the wrong way, and that happens in reverse as well. And so certainly there are people that I have found that I just don't play well with. And so what do you do about that? Well, the first one is that you have to realize, because it isn't 1994, we've had a little bit of time at this internet thing. And sometimes the way you come across on the internet in any kind of conversation or exchange isn't the way you intend. It's perceived differently by other people who are reading things differently than the way you write them. And so it isn't personal. Like, you can't take any of this personally. And so if you run into somebody that you're constantly having misunderstandings with, which is largely where I get frustrated, then what you have to do is simply avoid them. There's no benefit in conflict, really. You can let them know that there's a reoccurring miscommunication between the two of you if you feel that that's important. But largely, I would recommend just keeping a short list of people that you know you're likely to run into problems with, not because they're bad people, but because you communicate in slightly different styles that have proven to be somewhat incompatible. So I do have a list, and I've maintained it, and I started this list maybe 3 years ago simply because I was forgetting. As user Adam pointed out, I've been playing a lot of games, and so I've run across a lot of players, sometimes more than once. But to be honest with you, the list is quite short if you only look at active users. Most of the people on the list have long disappeared, and a few of the people on the list know who they are. And I'm sure I'm on their list too, for the same reason. We just communicate badly with each other. So I always think to myself, these are probably great people. They're probably just, people I'd have at my table and we'd be able to hash things out. But on the internet, things just won't always work out that cleanly. So I would recommend just try not to take things personally. Recognize there's a communication barrier, that it's you, it's the internet, and it's the other person, and we're just not designed as living animals to communicate effectively in this way without a lot of effort. And so don't make things rough. Hi, and welcome to Qralloqian Lore. In the segment Qralloqian Lore, I will be giving you short tips and tricks on how to use the site. So this can be pretty short. This is one of the tricks that I learned fairly late into it. It's a design feature. If I go to the latest posts, so this shows all the games that I'm in and various posts that have occurred. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, there is a black page icon And over here, there's a down arrow. So I always use the down arrow. And what that does is it takes you to the last post in a game. So for example, if I go to this interest check, if I click it, then it takes me to the last post. Now, if you're in a game where there's a lot of activity, the last post may not be where you need to catch up from. You might need to go to the last unread post, and that's what this black box is for. So if I click on this black box, it takes me to the last unread post. Now, in this case, the last post that's unread is also the last post because I'm pretty good at keeping up on it. But we recently started a Tales from the Loop game, so based upon the Swedish RPG. And in the first day, we had probably 25 posts. And the players are scattered all over the world. One's in Germany, the GM's in South Korea, I think. I'm in North America. And so when you wake up to a game that's fairly active, especially in the beginning, you might find 9, 10, 15 posts have occurred while you were sleeping. So this black page icon says view new posts when you hover over it. And that's exactly what it's for. It takes you to the first unread post in the thread. And that is my Qralloqian lore for the day. Hi, and thank you once again for joining me on Gamers Explain in our 4th episode. Thanks to Runekyndig for recording an interview with me. Thanks to Adam for sending in his question. Remember to hit like, subscribe, hit the little bells to get notifications when a new video goes up. I also want you to get out a D12 and roll it because D12s are awesome. Next week, in our 5th episode, I've recorded an interview with Lavender Todd. She's a Gamersplain user. She has a webcomic. She's a novelist in the works and just a great person. So we had a great interview, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. I'm Qralloq, and this has been Gamers Explain.